So hello to everybody who is here. Uh, all the names, Elvin, EKR, Stephen Schnee, Tony DeMeo, uh, George, and George, stick around because I'm going to be showing soon the two John Lennon items that you sent me, and Mason and Gary and everybody, Wild One, you know. Um, Yeah, not only is it John Lennon's birthday today, but of course, born the same day was his son Sean. So today is Sean Lennon's birthday as well. Sean is 47. So yeah, there's two birthdays to celebrate today. Um, let's say didn't know if I'd make a video or just have a discussion. So this is what I'm going to do. Just see anybody have anything they want to share. Give me ideas, comments, all about John is what we're focusing on here. So please do that. Uh, all right. Before I get started, I was telling George up there that I wanted to show the items that he sent me. He sent me some gifts, and these are two John Lennon items that I absolutely love. Okay, I adore these. First off, we have this. This is eventually these things will get displayed at some point. John Lennon section, today's free press advertisement. I just love it as a collector of all things Beatles and John and so forth. This is really nice. And then this here, and I hope I didn't damage it. But the package was very well sealed, and in my angst to try to open it, I hope I didn't ruin the corner. I don't know. Anyway, this is really nice too. Get the right angle on this. Exclusive John Lennon book excerpt, Sunday through Thursday. And that's pretty cool. I mean, there was a little bit here on the side um, that I think I screwed up a little bit when I opened it, but you know, still beautiful. Hello, Penny Lane. Hello, J.D. Thompson. Yeah. So, what can we say? I want to bring up Mason. Hello, Mason.
Hello, Joe.
What's the good word?
Just celebrating John Lennon's birthday. As I've told everyone, he is my second favorite Beatle next to George. Just because I respect him for his just downright honest personality. It's something that I think that Paul really should express a lot more. Is honesty.
Yeah. Well, obviously we are who we are, and I like the difference, the contrast between John and Paul. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I like a lot of Paul McCartney material when he's being more open and honest about his feelings.
Mm.
Which is probably why I like "Maybe I'm Amazed" so much as one of
Well,
my favorite songs of his.
it's the straight up reason that I think Chaos and Creation is his best solo work.
Yeah, I always say that too. I always say like my usual line. Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, about as close as he gets to John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band debut. Tony asked me, let's see, well, as long as we're both, what's your favorite song by John and solo? I certainly have a hard time answering either one. When it comes to solo, I always say Instant Karma, I
That's a good
say
one.
Mind Games,
Mm.
and I say Steel and Glass. Those are the first three, but there's tons for me. Beatles wise, boy, that's so tough. It's tough. Strawberry Fields, of course, is one of the obvious ones. So what are you? What about you, Mason?
I would say favorite John Lennon. Um, I like you. I just can't pick one, but there was mention of Steel and Glass. I think that is. I mean, I like How Do You Sleep as well, which they're basically very similar. But I think Steel and Glass is a better version of that one.
Yeah.
But um, I was in a James celebration stream for John Lennon earlier, and he asked me a quick because I was showing all the John Lennon solo albums that I have up to this point. He asked me for each of them what my standout song for each album would be, and I had mentioned that I think for Plastic Ono Band, I for two of them always stand out would be Working Class Hero and Isolation.
Well, let's do that. Well, you have the. So you going through every album?
Yeah, so I just did for Plastic Ono Band right here, and this is
So
actually the 50th anniversary release.
yeah.
I think it's
Well,
just the two CD
how many
one.
songs are you picking? One or two? What do you?
Well, I'm just gonna name off the like all the songs off each album that are that in particular are standouts to me that I always look to when I like if I were to pick up this album and say, oh yeah, this is definitely the album that has Working Class Hero on it, stuff like that.
Yeah, Working Class Hero. It's hard for me to pick on that album. Uh, I like Working Class Hero. I mean, I also like Hold On. Really, I like a
Yeah.
lot. It's
Um,
short, but it was just a little short.
but I Isolation is always a big one for me because just the heartbreak in his voice really got me.
There you go. Tony agrees.
And
Wow.
Plastic Ono Band happens to be my second favorite John Lennon solo album behind Walls and Bridges. I don't know why I've always said Walls and Bridges is my favorite. It's just such a fun album to listen to.
Mhm.
But here we go. Imagine this is one that you know, it's not a bad album by my standards, but it's just a standard album for me. I mean, it never really did anything major for me, but
Interesting.
obviously, obviously, Imagine is a standout song for this album. I mean, that's got to be on every Beatle fan's favorite list. Um, also, Jealous Guy is a very big one for me. Um, and I guess How Do You Sleep Off this one, even though I think that Stealing Glass was a better version of that.
Yeah, I think that How Do You Sleep is brilliant, even though it's aimed at Paul. But as I say, it's supposed to be a put down song, a la Positively Fourth Street, like a Dylan put down song, and it's perfect as such. And I like Give Me Some Truth. I like Crippled Inside. I mean, I could go on forever. I really like the album.
And this is not one of my favorites, but it's got its moments. And I think the one standout on this would probably have to be the song New York City. It's just a great rocker.
Yeah, I agree. That's my favorite song off there, and I also like "Woman Is the Blank of the World," which you have to say.
I like that song, but I can totally understand why it just did not connect with people back in the day.
Oh, it's it's
People just
easy to.
weren't the general public just I don't think was ready for this kind of exposure from John.
Mm. Um, Thoughts on God? For me, I don't love the song God as much as everybody does, to tell you the truth,
Oh,
because it's brilliant with the chorus, the piano and all that. I love that, and I love the idea that he's casting out ideas he doesn't believe in and all that, and ending in that crash and shock when ends with the Beatles. That's great, but as a song, it doesn't really do much. It basically just says, "I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that." It's not really much of a song, but it's a masterpiece nonetheless. Even though I wouldn't say it's like my favorite song.
hmm.
Um,
I Next up would be Mind Games, but I've been having a hard time trying to find that one on Amazon to buy. Every time I go on there, it's out of stock. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to show from that one. But that is probably my third favorite ranked solo album of his. And I'll just go ahead and say the standouts on that. Obviously, the song "Mind Games," but definitely "Out the Blue." That's just
yeah,
fantastic. And even Intuition, it's a rare example of John showing a more optimistic side.
yeah. Yeah, and that's really nice about it. It's kind of like almost a happy-go-lucky ditty, and he's being positive in it. Oh, I want to answer this. Do you think Crippled Inside was about Paul? And then Tony also adds, I thought it was about humanity and not one person. No way is it about Paul. No, it's just about in general. I think when you feel messed up inside, uptight, upset, you can't hide it. You kind of thing. Uh, so I don't think it has anything to do. A lot of times, I think people, and I'm fans, and I'm not necessarily just trying to single you out, Tony, but a lot of fans tend to think because we love the Beatles all the time and think about them so much, we think that everything the solo Beatles did, almost 90% of it, or 50% at worst, is about the other Beatles. No, I don't always think so, to tell you the truth. So, yeah, let's see. Absolutely, Joe. If John were around, I could see John doing live acoustic sets in small venues. If only. If only.
Well, and
Uh,
Joe has always mentioned that he thinks that if John had survived, then an attempt for the Beatles to reunite would probably have to have been at Live Aid.
that's what I always thought. That's the first. I don't know opportunity. I mean, they had opportunities, but at the earliest chance that I could see it happening. Let's
Well,
put
and
it
then
that way.
obviously anthology, and they did go with anthology for what it was.
Yeah.
How they kind of took John's demo of "Free as a Bird" and kind of expanded on it. Um, and same with "Real Love," and unofficially released now and then.
hmm So where did you leave off? Did you do? Oh, you didn't do. You don't have other albums yet of John's, or
Oh,
Walls
I
and
do.
Bridges and
I do have Walls and Bridges. Yes,
right. You like that?
this one's my favorite, and the standouts on it. I've always just liked going down on Love as an opener. I've always thought that one was great.
Mm.
Obviously, whatever gets you through the night, that being his first number one hit as a solo artist, and getting Elton John in there to do it with them. But I would also say Number Nine Dream. There's a lot of standouts on this album for me because there's so many good songs, in my opinion. Number Nine Dream, fantastic. Surprise, surprise, Sweet Bird of Paradise, also a duet with Elton John, believe it or not. Um, Stealing Glass, like I mentioned earlier. Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out. All those songs are standouts in their own right for me on this album. So it's easy to note that this album, out of all of his, has the most standout moments for me.
Yeah, that's a favorite of mine. I never know where to put it because sometimes I like it the best, and other times I just rank it third. Because I'm torn up because I still think Plastic Ono Band is his masterpiece. Really, even though it's it's so hard to listen to just all the time or just on a regular day.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's why.
don't, much like Mind Games, I don't own Rock and Roll yet, but I would say Stand By Me definitely, for sure. Um, his version of that, as well as I always liked his version of Slippin' and Slidin'.
Yeah, I do too. That's one of my favorites off the rock and roll album.
I guess going into Double Fantasy, that's another one that I have yet to get. There's quite a few that I still need to get from John, but that one, uh, Beautiful Boy. But the 2010 stripped down version is the one is my favorite of that. But that song is definitely a great moment off that album. Woman, definitely a fantastic song. Um,
Agreed.
I'm losing
Um,
you. Probably, I would say I'm losing you. That's a great one.
in response to Tony, yeah, John. Well, John said that about a lot of his work, and I don't really fault him for that. I
Oh, I
shake
thought
my
Number
head.
Nine Brick was brilliant.
I shake my head, and I say, "How come he?" but then I understand because it's different when you're an artist. And artists are like that. Are like that. I mean, real artists, true artists, they never satisfied. They always want to do better. They don't think as highly a lot of times as their own work as we do. They don't see it from the same outside focal point that we do. Um, you know, stuff like that. And I remember I just say like the actor Charlton Heston. I remember interview like what's your best role do you think? And he says I always say the next one. The next one. It's like he's never you know satisfied. So I believe that a lot of artists are like that. Although occasionally they like something that they did a lot and they realize how great it is. I think John always said he liked what he did with Across the Universe, for example. You know.
App- And I guess lastly is Milk and Honey. This one, uh, definitely, I don't want to face it. I've always that song just fantastic. Nobody told me the hit off that was actually supposed to be on Stop and Smell the Roses originally with Ringo performing it.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, but I don't know if it was 100% sure that that was going to be the one. There's also a song called "Life Begins at 40" that
Right.
he
Yeah.
that he had maybe for Ringo, but you know, he did say right when he was recording. Nobody told me there tapes of him, John, saying this one's for Ringo. So
Yeah.
could have very
Yeah.
well have been for Ringo.
I would.
Wound up.
The last one I would say off this album, Borrowed Time. Those three are definitely very strong moments on this album. But this album, actually, I can give a little bit of love to Yoko on this album because I think her one standout song on this album is Don't Be Scared. I think she's an amazing voice on that song. A very underrated song, as a matter of fact.
I agree. That's why again I think if some people would try to get over their hate for Yoko and their stereotypes that all she does is scream and nothing else because they feel happy being able to feel that way to have somebody to lash out at. I think they'd find out that some of the songs she does well. She sings well, and I think she was a good songwriter too. And John once said he thought that Yoko's lyrics are so poetic, and then some and
Well, they are. They
they
are.
they are
And
so
another one that I forgot to mention was I also kind of like Sisters Oh Sisters off New York City.
yeah, I've always been a favorite of mine as well. So, now what is "Woman" is my favorite song of all time. Oh, interesting.
That's a great one to be your favorite. Woman is just, I mean,
Hmm.
that was technically his last single, right?
Um, you mean when he was alive? No, he wasn't. He's dead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no,
He's
that
dead.
was his first single after he passed away because that belatedly came out in '81.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody told me it was released in '84. Unless you mean, you know,
Well, and then if you want to go with honorable mentions, uh, here we go again. The collaboration with Phil
yeah,
Spector.
yeah. Was that a single? I don't know. Every man has a woman who loves him.
That's another honorable mention. That's a great one too. But that was more or less just take Yoko taking John's demo
Backing.
and putting it on her track, which can probably be said for most of this album.
Yeah, that's why I never really consider that because John was gone and they took what they had and tried to release it that
Well,
way.
and the same thing with George Harrison's Brainwash. They just had to take whatever they had to work with and kind of build on top of that.
Although with Brainwashed, at least George left instructions, I believe, for that album. I'm pretty sure. Okay, I don't think it's gonna happen, Darren. I don't think so. So yeah, I agree with that, Tony. I love Yoko's double fantasy tracks very much. I did.
Well, isn't that the one that has "Kiss, Kiss, Kiss" on it?
That's one of the songs. Yeah.
But
Now you,
that was her hit off that record, I believe.
well, if it was a hit, it was a B side. of just like starting over.
Well, and from what I remember, people saying just like starting over is very, it's a great song, but it's with a great message, but it's very 50s nostalgic. And then Kiss 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 is actually the more contemporary sounding one of that time.
I'm pretty sure that it was this was a joint effort. I think both had input with a little help from my friends. Uh, I'm pretty sure. I think it was mostly Paul, but I think John had input. That's what I
Oh,
what
and
I think.
you had, by the way, you had asked if "Here We Go Again" was a single. I'm not sure if it was, but it was. It's sourced from the was it the U.S. versus John Lennon documentary?
Yeah.
It's sourced
Well, it
from that.
was it was on Menlove Avenue album, but I don't in '86. But I don't know if it was.
Was that actually a real album or was that a bootleg?
No, that was a real album released in '86. Menlove Avenue.
Well, it's out
Yeah.
of print then because I can't find it on streaming services. But I still collect physical media, so I might be able to pick up a copy of it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's hard to say, Henry. I mean, I do like Walking on Thin Ice quite a lot.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's
one
one of them.
that's the one that people say if you're going to listen to one Yoko song in your entire life, choose that one.
But I'd say yes, but no too, because for the people that love to pick on the noises, there are some of those noises in there too. But I think it's a wonderful dance track, and very
But
modern sounding.
that was the song they were working on the day he was killed, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Hello, Andrew. Tomorrow Never Knows. I love it. It's my favorite song off Revolver, and I think it's
I
the
mean,
beginning of psychedelia.
and, and, and I know, yeah, I want to speak about that. I know the U.S. Revolver gets crapped on a lot for omitting the Lennon songs it does, but it comes with an understanding that they did that because they were featured on the previous album, Yesterday and Today. But
Mhm.
I'm glad that the one that they didn't take off was Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah, well, sure. Well, yeah. Luckily, they didn't put it on yesterday and today. Well, so, oh
But
yeah, I had. Oh, go ahead.
My car really fits on Yesterday and Today. It doesn't on Rubber Soul. It doesn't.
I do have the Live in New York City album. Yeah, and it's a poor album. It is. Let's face it. We don't have much, sadly, of John. Live. Uh, there was talk, and I think it's more than talk now. I think Jack Douglas has confirmed that they actually tried to improve the John Lennon Live in New York City uh, release for that they're going to redo, and there was strong talk that it was going to come out in a box set sometime in New York City box set, which was kind of hinted at by Sean for this year, and then all of a sudden it went away. So we don't know if it's going to happen like at the late in the year or not at all or next year. But anyway, within that album set, they were going to supposedly have the new remastered version of that
Yeah.
in there or
And,
whatever they're going to do with it.
and still speaking a little bit about Revolver, because it is my favorite Beatles album. Um, that new box set that's coming out, I would have to say what I'm impressed about the most with it is much like Pepper, they're including the original mono mix.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they're including Paperback Writer and Rain with new stereo mixes and their mono mixes.
Is that really the best recording they have of John live? I don't know. The thing is, they say that that was the afternoon concert and the evening concert's better. I'm not 100% sure of that because I've mentioned this many times. At least when you watched the actual film that they put out of John Lennon live in New York City, not the album, but the film of it. And there was a VHS videotape back in '86. When John sings songs, if you just set your eyes on his microphone stand, in some shots it has a filter on it. In other cuts, it has no filter, and it goes back and forth. So that leads you to believe that it's excerpt from two shows. But anyway, we'll see
With
what
that
happens with that.
with that being said, Joe, I do need to get going. I may come back on later, but I food is cooking, so I've got to go check
That's
on.
okay, Mason. Thanks for stopping by. It's not going to be very long. It's not going to be very long. It won't be long, as
I
the
just want to
song
say,
says.
as was always saying, happy 82nd birthday, John Lennon. Um, what it would be like if you were here with us today.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what we can only guess at. We've been doing that for the last 42 years, sadly. All right, thank you so much.
Take care, Joe, and take care, everyone.
See ya. All right. So anyway, yeah. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna put the link up one more time here. I just wanted to do a little something. As I said earlier on in this, and it looked like I didn't really have to say it, so why did I? I've been under the weather for 4 days, and wasn't really necessarily going to do anything. And I thought, no, no, because I'm a John, big John guy, and it's his birthday, and I didn't know what to do, so here I am. Uh, yeah, I have not heard Friendly Fire, but I hear a lot of good things about it from Sean, you know, and of course the Claypool, Lennon Delirium, Hi, Tim. Yeah, Seasons of Glass. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I hear a lot. Yeah, Death of Samantha. Yeah, for Yoko. We're talking. Funny, you would think it was Yoko's birthday. We're doing a lot of talking about Yoko here. So, somebody had said that there was a lot of respect for John on Twitter. I think somebody said, and I can't find that quote, but glad to know that because these days you just never know. With the social media being as crazy as it is these days. All right. Well, I expected more people to maybe to show up, but they didn't. So this is a very, very, unless we can come up with anything, I'm going to pull the plug on this. But because I can't do this whole show by myself, to tell you the truth. I mean, I could, but what is there to talk about? I have nothing really prepared. Too bad I don't have any. I was going to try to show my John Lennon 45s, but they're not attainable right now from where I am. So that was something that should have been prepped if I was going to do it. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is football on or something? Is that what's going on? I don't know. A lot of people watch, or is that not Monday night football, but Sunday football? I don't know. Anyway, that's it, folks. I made my appearance. I wanted to do a little something, and I did. So here's wishing John. Oops, somebody popped up. Maybe not. That's a little embarrassing now at the last second. Say I'm going to go, and here's Matthew.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, I happened to got tied up with something and then saw you were still on. I wanted to pop in real quick just as you were saying your farewells. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. It's we here's the again I was originally going to make this I don't know a full blown Fab Gab. I still might title this Fab Gab. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, and then I was like, because I was under the weather, I said, I'm not really feeling it, so let's not do it. Then I said, no, I got to do something, so I will do something. Well, anyway, so what else could you say about John that we haven't said, Matt? As far as I don't know, you must have come up with stuff that your favorites, maybe some obscure tracks that you don't always hear about
mhm, yeah,
that you like or something.
yeah. Well, my favorite John solo album is Walls and Bridges. I think it's just to me that's the album where it really all came together for him. Nothing against Plastic Ono Band or Imagine, which a lot of people will say are his best. I think those albums are great, but um, he went for a more minimalist approach, especially on Plastic Ono Band. I felt Walls and Bridges was the album where he kind of brought in sort of the bigger production. He didn't go as quite as far into like the Abbey Road type production as like Paul did on Ram, but sort of more of a fuller production, which I enjoy. Great songs on that, and "Old Dirt Road" is a song on that album that I think is ones you don't hear about as often. That I think is
Mm.
just a brilliant song.
And for me, that's my least favorite song on Walls and Bridges. Yeah, yeah. But I do, I love the album. It's funny though. I mean, again, there was a period where I'd call it my favorite. I don't know. But it's interesting. Walls and Bridges has been getting such acclaim lately, and I'm so glad to hear that. A lot of people, even Mason, who was just on before you, well, they're saying that that's their favorite Lennon album.
Yeah, it may be like Ram. Ram was an album that some people always liked, but when you would hear about Paul's albums, it was Band on the Run. Now these days, it seems like Ram is the album you hear more about, and that's we may be seeing something similar with that for Walls and Bridges. I don't know. Maybe if they do one of those super deluxe sets, which I hope they'll do here in a couple of years, we'll really see the Walls and Bridges love take off.
Well, what I really like, one of the things I like about Walls and Bridges, and I always have to preface this by explaining again, as everybody knows who watches me, I'm a big Yoko Ono supporter and defender, and I completely honor John's wish to have Yoko in his life. And I'm never one of those people, oh, come on, John, what do you got to have Yoko around for? I've never been that. Having said that, I do like the change that Walls and Bridges is like feels like John on his own. Like
Hmm.
If there hadn't been Yoko, it would have just been John Lennon making an album. That I like that feeling like it's just John doing his thing.
Right. Yeah. And that's a good point. But it's what's interesting to me too about that album is you look at the lyrics, and we know that's during the Lost Weekend, and there's some stuff on there about May Pang, but still Yoko's influence on John and their relationship still comes through in a lot of the lyrics. So even though it's his most musically independent album, sh her impact on John is still there throughout a lot of
Yeah,
the songs.
yeah. Especially "Bless You," I think.
Yeah.
Which the "Bless You" is a song that I never liked when I was younger. It was too slow and this and that. But now I really like it a lot. I appreciate it now, mostly for its sentiment and what it's about, stuff
Mhm.
like what it's saying.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's funny how like you know, funny sad that there's not so much to talk about with John. It feels like because he left us so long ago.
Yeah, it's strange. That's something that occurred to me a few years ago when once I turned 41, and I thought, John Lennon never lived to be 41. That's kind of strange. It was kind of a strange, moment for me to think about. And, I'm 46 now, so I've had, 6 years longer than he had, in his life. And I think about my life up to 40, and it was like, it seemed like it just went by in a flash in some ways, and it's a lot shorter time. When I was, 15, 40 seemed like, well, that's a lot of years, but it goes by fast. Yeah, and there's who knows what
You're
else he could have
telling
done.
me. Wait till another 19 years come pass. You won't believe it. I just have to do this for fun. Tim Allen and I are always having fun here. Well, yes and no, Tim. The thing is, I did send you a couple of messages, but you don't check them. So, and first I was gonna give up the idea that I was gonna do this at all. Then I decided that no, I'll do something, and I changed it to two. So, if you want to pop up and get some thoughts in, if you're ready, that's fine. Otherwise, no problem. Uh, and there's another Walls and Bridges favorite solo album, period. I guess of all the Beatles, huh? Wow, boy, that cover goes a long way. That flip
Yeah,
cover. I
yeah,
like the cover a lot.
yeah. I love that. Great design.
This is going pretty good. I mean, I didn't have to drink any water. What did I drink water? I don't remember. I got cough drops. I don't even need this. I didn't even have to say anything at the beginning of the show.
Mm.
Wait a minute. There you go. I got this waiting over here. I mean, I've got all kinds of things here. But fine. Tim Allen. Oh, I feel terrible. I set up my day to be here at 3. I'll be up in a minute. I apologize, Tim. What can I tell you? I'm sick here. I didn't expect that. Uh, yeah. So let's just put this stuff up because other thoughts. Chaos and Creation, and Walls and Bridges, my two favorite of the solo Beatles albums. Eesh.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Those are both great albums. You don't usually hear people though say that those are their favorites out of all of them. So that's pretty cool.
Well, while we're waiting for a Tim, we can put up a Tom. What's up
Hey,
there?
how much? How you doing, fellas?
You doing? I wonder why is my lighting so poor? This is me. This is me now in typical form.
Huh,
Everybody else looks clear and everything. I'm like kind of like a right, like an over saturated look or something.
no.
So what's going on, Tom? This is not. By the way, this is a John show. You know, this is not a Paul show. Just oh, you thought? There you go.
There you
There he goes. Oh, jeez, jeez. Uh,
There we go. So we're good. Yes, absolutely. John, happy birthday, wherever you are.
I can't answer this question. Not, not much imagination. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I never liked that they did that. But what are you gonna do? One's in black and white. One's in color. Sun going through your window, Joe. Yes, well, that's what I thought that was good. Natural daylight. I thought that would be good.
Yes, yes.
And then over here, I got a lamp. If I shut the lamp off, it's not as good. I got a lamp here and sun over
Mm-hmm.
there. I don't know anything about lighting. Uh,
So what are we talking about?
anything. John Lennon. It seems. What is Christopher says what I always say, right? It seems just fallen off his pedestal because people choose to believe what they read in books written by people who never knew him personally. Well, they also,
No.
it's not all phony. It's not all lies and everything. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
we've
know.
kind of
But
come like the full circle with John. After he
yeah.
died, then he was saying it, and you couldn't say anything negative about him. And then somewhere
Right.
along the line, it went completely the other way, where now it's like people want to act like he had
Yeah.
no redeeming qualities, or
yeah, and I think
Right.
it's time, weighing the two, to go back to the former. I
And
never
there's
thought I
people
would
that
say
wrote.
that, but
Yeah. And there's people out there that wrote books that knew John. I mean, here's one of them.
yeah, yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't
I,
have that book. I admit I will get it if I ever. I didn't know. I didn't buy
Yeah.
it back in the day. She still thinks she's John Lennon's true love, but I don't want to start anything
Right.
now. No, you're not. Okay,
Yeah.
but this is. Uh, wow, I said too
I
much
mean,
there. But
yeah. I mean, here's another book that.
get that out of here! Don't even show that piece of garbage. You guys are pretty good. You
Yeah.
guys, you Tom, are pretty good. You
Yeah.
wait to see when Paul McCartney's gone for a while.
Oh,
You're gonna
believe
have
me,
books. Oh, the
I.
last days of Paul McCartney. Oh,
There
what
you
really
go.
happened with
Oh
Paul McCartney?
yeah.
You
Oh
wait.
yeah.
You wait.
Oh,
It's gonna happen.
I'm expecting it. I'm expecting it.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever.
Yeah. As far
Secret
as that.
Wars, they're posted up behind you there, huh, Matt?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, I remember
I
those. I
remember
think.
when that came out, man. I was living in Texas at the time. I think it was 11 years old, and I remember it in comic stands and all that stuff. I mean, especially that one too, because of the different costumes. Sorry about changing the subject on
Well,
John,
it's
but
just,
I mean that's
That's all
just
right.
bringing back
you
memories.
have to.
That's
Nobody
all.
wants to
Just
talk about John. But anyway, be that as it may, the Secret Wars. Now that shows you the age difference because to me,
right.
I remember that vividly. To me, that's when it was all starting to end. for me.
Mm.
I liked Marvel comics in around 85 or 6 when I was like, I don't like the way this is going.
Yeah,
So
see, I was 8, and then that was the point where it was all come together for me, where I was like
Yeah.
all in, you know.
sure,
Hmm.
Mhm.
as well it should be, as long as it's not coming all together to everybody now with these horrible Marvel movies that they have out there, because those things are like ridiculous. That She-Hulk
I have,
thing.
yeah, I have completely just given up on the shows and the movies. I'm done. I've invested plenty of time, and I'm just done with them. Is that a
Um,
Tim? Tim, turn the light on.
he's frozen in the bottom here. I'm gonna remove you and see if you can come back up again, Tim. Let's see. Well, the thing we should talk about the last day, that last whatever it was called, the last days of don't show it again. Just say it. Oh, that one's
That's a good
fine.
book.
That one, the Ken Womack book is good.
Yeah.
That's good. But the other one, nah, because there's a lot of bull crap in that book. I'm sure a lot of truth in there, a lot of interesting stuff in there. But I
Yeah.
could tell the way it's written. You're not going to convince me that Fred was the only guy that was devastated when John was killed. And everybody,
Hmm.
the place was running like nothing, nobody cared, and I was like so devastated, and you know, Yoko was like, "If you want a job here, you better get or somebody, you better get it together, or somebody, you better give me a break." That's because the guy was a thief who
Mm,
wound up stealing all John's stuff,
right.
and the convicted felon. And I believe, in my opinion, that he had an axe to grind. And on that note,
Mm.
let's bring up the world famous Stephen Schnee.
Gentlemen,
What's going on, Schnee?
happy holidays. No, I basically came up here because I wanted to ask, what did you guys think of the Lennon remixes that came out in the early to mid 2000s
Oh
on
yeah.
CD?
I
Because
liked
those
it.
are,
The
yeah, those are deleted. You can't get those on streaming anymore. I
really.
love. I always felt that Walls and Bridges suffered from that Lennon production where it was very compressed and everything was sort of almost in the center, as opposed, it wasn't a monaural recording, but a lot of it seemed to be recorded, right in the center. So the saxophone solos on Whatever Gets You Through the Night overwhelmed a lot of the other instrumentation. But I think that the remixes actually helped that separation and actually made those sessions sound better.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
some are better than others. I mean, I think the Mind Games one might be my favorite
Mm-hmm.
of the set. And but yeah, I mean, Walls and Bridges, you can definitely tell. I mean, once when someone gets whatever gets you through the night does come on, it's just like you're
Yeah.
almost pushed back with the power of the horns for
as far as
sure.
I'm concerned, the best whatever gets you through the night for my money right now is the one on the "Give Me Some Truth" compilation. Is the one I like the best, where you get more John, being heard. And as far as these older ones, the CDs, I definitely liked what they did with Mind Games, like Tom mentioned, and also the Rock and Roll album. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I like those.
Yeah, I just really, it for I think in a lot of cases they're not as drastically different as let's say the remixes of the Beatles stuff. It's just that there's just more separation, and you can hear the instrumentation. So yeah, I think something like Mind Games just sounds incredible. Um,
Mm.
and the only problem I've ever had with the song "Whatever Gets You Through the Night" is the fact that that sax solo, or I mean the overbearing sax reminds me of going into commercial breaks on Saturday Night Live.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm.
you know, but
Even now, it's so predominant still on the show. I mean, we just watched last night's episode this morning, and it's still just. I mean, the sax has always been the big part of
yeah,
the opening music of that show, and even now, it's still very, very loud.
Well, it's
yeah,
kind of in my mind. There's sort of a New York mid '70s sound that the original Saturday Night Live band was part of, and I think that translates into a little bit into like Walls and Bridges, and also sometime in New York City. There's some of that kind
Absolutely.
of that era of New York that's kind of in those albums.
Yeah, West Coast was not quite as um, uh, raw as the East Coast was. East Coast tended to have a bit more of a raw feel to it, such as those Lennon albums. I never did get the "Sometime in New York City" remix because back, I have to admit, even what was that? How many years ago was that? 15, 17 years ago when those things came out. I still was not a big fan of that record.
I don't think anyone was.
Yeah. So it's like, well, gosh, I wasted my money, being a preteen buying Sometime in New York City, and I'm certainly not here to diss it, whatever. But now I think if I went back and listened to it, I would pay closer attention to Yoko's material
Well, yeah,
because, go
it's
ahead,
an
Matthew.
album that to me it has its moments. I always rank it at the bottom of his, the standard 8 John solo albums, but I was really looking forward to the deluxe box set, which looks like now may have been delayed or who knows what happened to it.
Mhm.
But to give it another chance, give it a new mix and kind of see how it comes together. But even now, as it is, I actually think there are one or two Yoko songs to me that are the better songs, among the better songs on the album. I still think New York City is head and shoulders the best track on that album.
Mhm.
And then there are other tracks that I, suffer through when I listen to it. Yeah, there are a couple good Yoko tunes on there.
How do you like her singing on "Luck of the Irish"?
Luck of the Irish is one of those songs I suffer through when I listen to it. To be honest, yeah, there's really not much about that track that I like.
Yeah, I mean, in Lennon's catalog, I know everybody loves the Plastic Ono Band album. For some reason, my go-to is probably going to be Mind Games. And
That's
go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead. No, I'm just saying I agree with you. That's mine now. Mind Game or Plastic Ono Band. Yeah, at the beginning of my fandom for John, that was my go-to as well.
Yeah, and I mean, saying Mind Games is my favorite is not me saying it's the best John Lennon album. It's the one, I mean, sure, there are cheesy songs, One Day at a Time, Intuition, that are, I think in many ways, I think that John is, I mean, he was the tough Beatle. We knew that, he had the more abrasive attitude and stuff like that. But John could be as sweet as McCartney. I mean, you go back to the Beatles, listen to "In My Life," and that is right there on the level with the McCartney. And I'm sure that
If
they
I
both
Fell.
wrote it. Yeah, "If I Fell," these songs are beautiful, and especially "If I Fell." The harmonies on that, if you listen to the harmonies, they're emotionally different. John has sort of the dour, kind of like, oh, this is kind of, I'm not sure about this situation type harmonies, whereas Paul has those, like, hey, this is going to work out type harmonies, and just put those together, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning.
It works.
And if you go back and listen to them with their different approaches to those harmonies, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I think all of us can, I mean, especially us four, and I'm sure a lot of people listening as well. I mean, we can separate, our favorites to what we know is really the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Mind Games can be our favorite now, but we realize, that Plastic Ono Band is probably his best record.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
I
for that
totally
reason,
agree.
I don't think it's hard to, but yeah, like songs like out the blue and I know, on Mind Games too, I think just have really just risen in stature for me over the last 10, 15 years since that remix came out.
Yeah. I noticed, and maybe one of you three can help me. The 7-inch of Mind Games had Meat City on the B side. and it was a slightly different version.
Hmm.
You know how
Yeah,
it
with
had
the noise
what?
that the you're talking about, also that little sound
Yes.
that yeah. I forget. I should really remember this, but one of them's check the album. I think isn't that 45 say check the album when you play it backwards or something?
Oh,
You
I'm
remember?
not
Are
sure.
we talking about the same little bit of like gibberish that's in there?
Yeah, it's like the backwards, like
Yeah,
high pitched vocal. Yeah,
yeah.
it's super subtle, but I don't think that that version has ended up on anything unless the Mind Games box set is coming next year.
Yeah, this is true, but I can't remember. This is something we've that I know it's been talked about before, and I knew the answer, but I haven't retained it.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
maybe
totally.
somebody can tell us.
Yeah, but yeah, I think each album or each of the Lennon albums just has some just amazing moments. I mean, I tend to say when you look at the solo Beatles output, and I know it's John's birthday today, and I'm not dissing him, whatever. I think McCartney overall has my favorite of the solo Beatles output, but Lennon wasn't trying to compete with McCartney, which I think was the great. Sure, in pictures and stuff like that, but they weren't musically competing. Lennon was making completely different records than what Paul was making, and I think that's the charm of listening to all the solo things.
Well, to an
Is
extent, maybe I can agree with you. Like, he wasn't trying to be super commercial on Plastic Ono Band. I mean, that didn't sell as well as I'm sure he was hoping it would. Imagine maybe a little bit more commercial, and then
mhm.
obviously we know sometime in New York City, you know, probably his least lacking,
Yeah,
commercial output. But then when I think with Mind Games and with Walls and Bridges, I think he was trying to be more commercial with those two albums and maybe trying to compete. Hence, bringing on maybe an Elton John for whatever gets you through the night. Working with
yeah.
Bowie, with the two of the biggest stars of the '70s at the time. So I
Mhm.
do think he was mindful of it, but it wasn't. I don't think it was his main priority, though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I tend to think that when sometime in New York City did not do well in the charts, I think his approach outwardly was to say that, I'm not chasing after the charts, but I think when the
Mm.
reality of that album not doing as well as his previous albums hit him, I think he became a little more focused on sort of getting back that prestige because the Beatles. When he was a Beatle, he and Paul were very conscious of trying to write number one hits. They did care about,
Yeah,
not necessarily the just the money aspect of it, but I think they like the prestige of being able to say, "Hey, we're
yeah,
number one."
right. I
Yeah.
mean, well, George already had two number one singles, right? Paul, I think, had three or four by this time. Ringo's already had two,
Yeah,
number one singles.
yeah. John was the
By
last Beatle to have a solo number
right.
one.
And it's not all about the number ones. I mean, it just
Well,
really
we're saying that, yeah. I
for
mean,
good
we're
artists, it
agreeing with
shouldn't be
that.
about
Yeah,
number ones. But the
Yeah.
thing is,
exactly. No, yeah,
um, what it gets me to, and it always goes back to the same thing for me, is that John did pretty damn well for 7 years of recording, and that's really
Mhm.
all it was.
Mhm.
These days, I mean, right? How long does it take between albums for people to have another
no,
second
forget
album?
about it.
So
Yeah.
I don't understand. See, people tend to say, well, obviously Paul had a great career, still does, and George had, his successes too, and Ringo even had the hits. But then I think, well, again, not counting these experimental John albums, but starting with Plastic Ono Band, you got like 7 years we're talking about that he recorded, and you got Plastic Ono Band's considered like something of a masterpiece album in history.
It is.
You
Yeah.
got Imagine is considered a great album. All right, then he had a flop. Everybody has a flop. Usually, because everybody has that. This is their worst album or the album that's frowned on. That's sometime we ought to say.
Wildlife was McCartney's.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
yeah. Everybody has
Absolutely.
something, and then you got after that you got. I consider like trying to be fair for me. Mind Games and Walls and Bridges, two good albums. Like meaning like objectively speaking, they're not considered classics. Maybe like Plastic
Correct.
Ono Band and
Mhm. I
uh,
imagine.
but two good albums. And then you had I'm trying to remember now. You had an oldies, a covers album. like people do that, like covers or I mean, what else? And then he went on retirement. It's like there wasn't even really much time. But
Yeah.
people tend to look at it. I get this a lot in the comments, like, oh, he really had a bad career. He really didn't do much. It's only 7 years. That's a lot in 7 years. And then, of course, double fantasy. I didn't throw that in there, but I'm
Right.
going. I'm going from 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 80. So I'm doing like seven.
John did the great thing about Lennon is that he did things his way. He any artist in his position would not even have considered taking 5 years off to raise their son. They would have continued because they knew that you need to rebuild that commercial momentum. Well, he was gone just long enough for people to miss him. And I don't think that was planned, but that's why Double Fantasy had that. Just by the time that came out, everybody was ready for new Lennon.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
but the difference between him and any other artist that would have taken 5 years off is that he was a Beatle.
Yeah.
And I do think, yeah, 1980, I'm sure everybody was ready, for a new John Lennon record, but I'm sure they wanted just a John Lennon record.
Yeah, that was a big deal when it was
Well, yeah.
Yoko.
But it was a big deal. But then again, I distinctly remember papers saying Yoko's stuff is more interesting than
Right,
John's on it.
Yeah.
right.
So for me, as I've often said, when I listened to Double Fantasy, I was a little disappointed in John's stuff a little bit because I thought his voice sounded great. I thought he
Mhm.
sounded really good, but I expected something a little more biting than that kind of stuff. And now, all these years later that I'm older, I was only like a teenager then. Now I'm older, and I'm like, no, those are talking about, women and your wife, talking about your son and all that kind of stuff is powerful stuff. But at the time, I didn't really care as a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yeah,
But
because you
that's
couldn't
me.
relate to it in a way. You couldn't
But
relate
other
to.
people, other teenagers might have been able to
Mhm,
like it.
mhm.
I just thought, this is it. I like watching the wheels right away back then.
Incredible. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
maybe I'm
But
losing
but
you
he
also. But
Yeah, but there was enough material with Milk and Honey for him to have done just a solo record, right? I mean, you still had
yeah,
all that stuff on Milk and Honey. I mean,
yeah,
the
sure.
possibility was there for just a solo record. But again, I do like that aspect which we talked about, Joe, with the husband and wife. If that was the concept,
Yeah, that was the concept. Right.
of double fantasy.
Yeah,
That Lennon box set from 1990, that fourth
Yeah.
disc is just the Lennon songs from Double
Hmm.
Fantasy and Milk and Honey. So you kind of
Right.
get to hear it
Right.
if was done that way.
Yeah,
And
you
I think
can.
to me
Right.
it misses out a little bit because I think that dialogue with Yoko, especially on the Double Fantasy songs,
Hmm.
they play off each other really well. I think you need
yeah.
them both.
I agree. I like the dialogue back and forth, but yeah, that extra disc, the fourth disc on the Lennon box CD, that is a good item to have for that very
Hmm.
reason that you say, Matt. It's very, and at times that's what I want to hear. Just the John stuff. I just put that on.
Yeah.
And
How many people? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
it also has. I think that also has "Every Man Has a Woman." John's track
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Hmm.
of that.
Yeah.
I mean, how
And
many
that's where
people out there made? I never did, but I knew at least 2 dozen people who made one side of a cassette called Single Fantasy and just
mm,
put the John songs.
It sounds
Y-
familiar. I mean, that's like something that I've heard people doing. Like it's obvious. It's like an obvious title.
exactly. Like I said, I've known 2 dozen people who did that back in 1980.
Yeah.
yeah.
What about just like starting over? Um,
I think it's one of his catchiest solo tunes. Myself, I mean, you talk about commercial. I think that's commercial all day
yeah.
long.
Well, yeah. That.
You know,
Yeah.
and I mean now, I mean, I think it's a great song now. I mean, the older I get, I think it's better because now I'm more relatable. I can relate to it more. So I think it's a great track.
I always tell that story. that I just remember I was driving in my car, and it was like the radio was gonna play the new John Lennon song, and I hadn't heard it yet because it was exciting the way they did things. You didn't get right. What do you call them? Leaks
Yeah.
on the internet.
Right.
I'll send you the clip or whatever the
Yeah. Right.
link. So anyway, so I was with my sister. I just pulled over and I said, "Here it is. Here it comes." And let's say the first thing I remembered being astonished by was the sound of his voice, which was so
Hmm.
good in it. And it was a fun song. Yeah, a commercial song. Yeah, it had hit on it written on it.
Hmm.
Hit potential. But I did think at the time it was kind of like a little sugary and
Hmm.
la di da kind of thing. But
Yeah.
no, I did like it as a first single. You know.
I really love the towards the end of it when you get the backing vocals going over and over and over, and then
Yeah, yeah.
him extending vocals on starting over. I dig that stuff,
And
man.
certain
Towards the end of
versions, I
that
don't know
track.
which ones they go longer. It's
Mm,
longer fade out to that.
mm. Well, sorry, Joe, but my wife and I were gonna go see the Amsterdam film, and just wanted to pop up and say hi to everybody and happy
Tom, I
birthday,
heard it's
John.
horrible.
Well, yes, I
What?
know, but
Okay.
but my favorite actor's in it, and I've seen a
Okay.
lot of his horrible
There you
movies.
go. There's shot for you. Don't even go. All right.
Enjoy,
Anyways, but
Tom.
take care, everyone.
Let's
See
see you,
you.
Tom.
All right,
See you,
Tom.
Matt.
Yeah, I'm not
Joe.
gonna be. I didn't want to stay on more than an hour anyway. So pretty soon I'm gonna go anyhow. But here, this I cannot agree with Woodland Goblin at all. I think Oh Yoko is so much better than Dear Yoko. But
Yeah.
Dear Yoko to me is such a perfunctory throwaway track, and on the album. Maybe because Oh Yoko already existed that I feel that way. Had it not
Yeah.
already existed, I might have said, "Oh, this is a nice tribute, Dear Yoko."
Yeah, I
What do you
like
think?
Dear Yoko. It's a good song, but to me, Oh Yoko is one of John's best songs. I think
Yeah.
that's a classic. Yeah.
Don't tell your friends the surprise ending. Bang, zoom. Anybody watch
No,
the
I would
Honeymooners?
never.
No, I
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I know.
I would never do a spoiler. Unless it's like a movie from 1968. Bonnie and Clyde die at the end.
Yeah,
Uh oh.
yeah.
Um, but anyway, I'm going to get going too, and I'm going to leave you and Matthew here.
All right.
I appreciate the time, Joe.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you,
great rest of
Stephen.
your day, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you. Same
All
to
right.
you, by the way. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much. I'll talk
All
to y'all
right.
later. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Take care, Stephen.
Um, this is something I always forget about here. Forgive me, my little flower princess. Yeah, that's that. Every time people say, "What do you think is John's like worst song or whatever?" I always say that might be one of them, but I don't. You know, the thing with that for me is that again, it's not really fully realized at that point. So I don't.
Yeah, Tom earlier was mentioning "Luck of the Irish." I think that's for me. That might be right at the bottom. That's
Oh
one that I
yeah,
don't have a great deal for.
not a big fan of that, eh?
No.
You know what mine is? I usually say Sunday Bloody Sunday. I'm just not wild about that. That's
Yeah,
my
so
least
I
favorite.
actually kind of like that one.
Boy, we gotta have to do a lot more of these shows then because we have to get our rankings and things going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to keep it at about an hour or so. So I'm so thankful to everybody who came up, yourself included, Matthew, and thanks everybody in the comments. And here's remembering John and Sean too. Happy birthday to
Mhm.
both.
That's right.
Born on the same day. John was really happy about that. That happened. Oh, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yes, this is true. Yeah, John had made "Oh Yoko" a while before he released on
Hmm.
Plastic Ono. Is that I love that song, that version
Hmm.
of them doing that. Then he says, "I want you" in there. He starts singing, "I want you." Goes
Yeah.
into like a. Oh, that's a great. I'm getting excited just thinking of it. That was really good. All right, thank you everybody. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you soon. As if you're still lingering on, as far as videos go, we'll see what I'm going to be doing. I have a couple of older videos I might put up in the meantime, but You never know. This can change. I can do newer videos, but I'll be putting content up. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Talk soon.
Thanks, Joe. All right.
Later.